War. Throughout history, humanity has taken up arms for the noblest of causes. For freedom, for glory, for honor. And also, one time, for a bucket. And a pig, and a soup kettle, and a pastry. And we'll get to the bird. Just know, the bird is undefeated. And the bird is watching. Every one of these is real. Historians confirm them. I'm as upset as you are. We're counting down. Dumb to unforgivably dumb. In 1859, the United States and the British Empire, two of the most powerful nations on Earth, came within one itchy trigger finger of all-out war over a pig who was eating potatoes. There's a little island off what's now Washington State, San Juan Island, and thanks to a gloriously vague treaty, both America and Britain were completely sure they owned it. So they did the only mature thing and just both moved in together. Awkwardly. It was fine. Tense, but fine. Until an American farmer named Lyman Cutler looked out his window and saw a pig eating his potatoes again. Now, not his pig. It belonged to his British neighbor, who Lyman had politely asked to keep it under control. Keep your pig out of my garden. He's a free pig, mate. So, Lyman shot the free pig. And this is where two grown empires lost their minds. The British threatened to arrest him. America sent soldiers to protect him. Britain sent warships. America sent more soldiers, including a young officer named George Pickett, who you may recognize for making a significantly worse decision at Gettysburg a few years later. Within weeks, 460 American troops, 5 British warships, 2,000 men, 70 guns, all aimed at each other, over a pig. Thankfully, the actual officers realized they were about to start an empire versus empire war over livestock, and quietly agreed to just not. They stood there glaring for 12 years, until a neutral party, randomly the Emperor of Germany, got to decide who owned the island. He picked America. Nobody ever fired a second shot. Total casualties of the pig war? 0. Total pig casualties? 1. Rest in peace, you magnificent potato-loving idiot. In 1325, 2 Italian cities went to war and thousands of men died. For a bucket. A wooden one. And the winners were so proud of it, they kept it. It's in a museum right now. Modena and Boulogne, neighbors who hated each other for the extremely medieval reason that one backed the Pope and one backed the Holy Roman Empire. Picture the pettiest sports rivalry you've ever seen. Except of throwing insults, they threw cavalry. Tensions were already boiling, but the part that everyone remembers, some Modenese soldiers snuck into Boulogne and stole a bucket from a public well, purely as a flex. They took the bucket. Then there will be war. Over the bucket? Over the bucket. Boulogne marched over 30,000 men to Modena's doorstep. Modena, badly outnumbered, scrapped together about 7,000. And Modena won, the smaller army, at the Battle of Zappolino. Thousands died, and the underdogs sent Boulogne home without their bucket. Quick honesty check, because this is us. The bucket wasn't technically the cause. The whole Pope versus Emperor thing was already going to blow. The bucket was more of a trophy, but Modena kept it and stuck it in a tower, where it still sits today. A wooden bucket in a museum, the trophy from a war that killed thousands of men. In 1838, France, a genuine global superpower, sent its navy across an entire ocean to invade Mexico over a man's pastry shop. Years earlier, a French pastry chef living near Mexico City claimed some Mexican army officers had strolled into his shop, eaten everything, paid for nothing, trashed the place, which, in fairness, is exactly what soldiers do everywhere, in all of history. He wanted France to make Mexico pay him back. Mexico reasonably said, "You want us to reimburse one bakery from years ago, based on your word?" And normally that's the end of it. Except France had been itching for an excuse because Mexico also owed France a big pile of unpaid debts. The pastry was just a dramatic gift wrap, so France rolled it all into one demand: pay up or else. Mexico said no. France blockaded the coast and started shelling the fortress at Veracruz. And this dragged one of Mexico's most famous generals, Santa Anna, out of retirement to defend the country. During the fighting, a French cannonball took off part of his leg. Now, losing a leg in battle is genuinely tragic, but Santa Anna may have been the most dramatic man who ever lived. So years later, at the height of his power, he had the leg dug back up and gave it a full state funeral, a parade, cannons, poetry, for a leg. Eventually, Mexico agreed to pay. France sailed home, and it was over. All because one baker really wanted his croissant money. This one is my favorite, because it is the shortest, most efficient war on the list.
Hooray!
2 nations, a fleet of warships, 1 shot fired, 1 casualty. Soup. For 200 years, the Dutch had kept a major river, the Scheldt, closed to shipping. That river was the only way trade ships could reach the big ports upstream. So, keeping it shut made the Dutch fantastically rich, and everyone else fantastically annoyed. The Dutch had exactly one rule about the river: nobody gets through. Remember that. In 1784, the Holy Roman Emperor, Joseph II, had finally had enough. "Open the river, or else." "No. Or else." "We heard you the first time." So, Joseph sent 3 ships to force their way through, absolutely certain the tiny Dutch Republic would never dare fire on the Holy Roman Empire. He was so sure, he put a merchant ship in front, flying his own personal flag. A power move. The Dutch, remembering their one rule, sent a single ship, the Dolphin. It pulled up to the mighty Imperial flagship and fired 1 shot. The shot missed everything important and hit a pot of soup. That's the damage. That's the whole war. And the Holy Roman Empire, one of the largest powers in Europe, looked at its ruined soup, decided this was simply not worth it, and surrendered. The fleet turned around and went home. It was really good soup. They call it the Kettle War, because when your entire military achievement is, "We spilled some soup," you don't get to name it after yourself. And now, the bird. The dumbest war in history. The only one where modern military, armed with machine guns, went to war against an enemy with no weapons, no strategy, and no thumbs, and lost. Badly. In 1932, Australia declared war on emus. The emus won. It's the Great Depression. Australian wheat farmers, many of them ex-soldiers from World War I, are barely surviving. And then, about 20,000 emus, which, if you've never seen one, are basically 6-foot velociraptors that forgot how to be scary, migrate straight into the farmland and start eating everything. The farmers ask the government for help, and the government decides the correct response to a bird problem is to send in the military, with machine guns. So, in November 1932, Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery arrives with 2 soldiers, 2 machine guns, and 10,000 rounds, fully expecting to mow down some birds and be home by lunch. The emus had other plans. First engagement, about 1,000 emus wander into range. The soldiers open fire, and the gun jams after roughly a dozen birds. The rest scatter into the bush like they'd been briefed, And here's what nobody expected. The emus were fast, around 30 miles an hour. They didn't behave like targets. They split into small packs, kept their distance, and bolted the second the shooting started. The soldiers mounted a machine gun on the back of a truck to chase them. The truck could not keep up. The birds were faster than the car. To be clear about the matchup here, the humans had machine guns. The emus had legs. The legs were winning. After a week, Major Meredith, a trained officer, had fired thousands of rounds and killed almost nothing. He reportedly admitted that if you could get a division of soldiers to take bullets the way these birds did, they could face any army on Earth. Which means, mid-war, the commander stopped to compliment the enemy. The operation was pulled, mocked across the national press, sent back out to try again, and finally called off for good in December. Final tally, out of 20,000 emus, fewer than 1,000 killed, using nearly 10,000 bullets. The birds kept the farmland, the army went home, and the emus were declared, unofficially but eternally, the winners. So there you go. 5 times humanity looked at a pig, a bucket, a pastry, a pot of soup, and a bird, and chose violence. Every one of them real. Every one of them documented. Final damage across all wars. 1 pig, 1 bucket, 1 leg, 1 pot of soup, and whatever was left of the Australian military's dignity. If you want more history that sounds fake, but absolutely isn't, I've got a whole video on how much of the Odyssey actually happened. Spoiler, it's more than you'd think. Go check it out, and to the emus, wherever you are, we know, we remember. Well played.